Now, I'd like to introduce Mr. Volodymyr Danyliuk, who we also heard from yesterday. Mr. Danyliuk is head of the Forum of Ukrainian Journalists. Welcome, Mr. Danyliuk.
Здравствуйте, дорогие друзья.
Hello, dear friends. Today in Ukraine, an interesting stage of development is happening. On the 25th of October, we'll have local elections. And due to the change of legislation, Ukraine political parties of national level actively participate in this election. Both parties who are in power and who are in opposition focused on this local election, and this coronavirus pandemic has become somehow secondary in the information space, and the first predominant topic is local elections. Many well-known politicians are running. I lost him, I'm sorry.
It's okay, we can wait a minute.
Yeah. That's why they will continue to run and to elect chairpersons later of the regional councils. So it's only a couple of days before the election, and they are focused on this process. It's interesting to observe how the situation is happening, because, as you know, in Ukraine, practically all mass media are private, and as a rule, they belong to people who are called oligarchs in our country, citizens who Ukrainian citizens mostly, but they have a lot of money, they have a lot of influence in business. They or their representatives are present in Ukrainian politics, including the parliament, and they promote their own candidates through different parties. This is the main thing that's happening, and now we are at the peak of this process. We know that the government tried to do a reform of mass media in our country. This was one of the requirements of the European Union. The reform seems to have happened, especially on the level of the regional mass media, but as a result, quite a paradoxical situation happened. Formally, the local government left the circle of power of mass media, so they either do not participate in the development of mass media, or they are like waiting for something to happen. I know that in Germany, media centers in Münster and other cities, they are funded by local citizens who live in this territory. It doesn't work in Ukraine on this level, because just recently there was a scandal in the east of Ukraine, in the Sumy region. My former classmate, Yuri Talan, was head of this media that was created by members of the local council. And just a week before the election, the members of the council fired the editor-in-chief. So they happened to show that the local authorities can actually have an impact on the policy of mass media. And now this editor-in-chief went to court, and he sued them, and he tries to fight for his rights, and the journalist organizations support him, but this reform unfortunately did not work in Ukrainian media. We used to have a central state-owned TV channel in Ukraine, and there were small divisions of the company in each region. So they reformed the system. Now they call it a public television. But again, the management system is built in such a way that it's a network of channels. It's strictly centralized, and the funding depends on Kiev directly. And just recently, they elected a new member of the Observatory Council, and I was supposed to go there for this election, but I knew who they were going to elect to the council just a couple of days before the elections. So I decided not to participate, and that's how it happened in the end. So this is the situation. So I can say there are many threats to the freedom of speech in Ukraine. This is not true because there are different media sources, also social media, but this kind of virus of oligarchism coming there too. Some people start distributing, spreading propaganda information just because they live it, and some people probably, you know, receive a salary for spreading those fake news. So this is the situation we have now. I cannot say that the Ukrainian state thinks a lot about its prestige or about its presence in the information space of the whole world, because in Ukraine we have Ukrainian language representatives of such international media companies as Deutsche Welle and Radio Free Europe and BBC, but we don't have anything like that in Ukraine, you know, to be able to have an impact on the information policy on the occupied territory of the Crimea and Donbass. We understand that that Ukraine as a state is a democratic state. It tries to develop according to the principles of the European Union and other countries of Western democracy, but at the same time, I think that we have a lot to improve in the information sphere, and we need to change many things in this area. This is in brief about what's happening in Ukrainian media space. Of course, I cannot claim that this is like a complete truth, but my analysis, my opinion from talking to active journalists to researchers makes me think so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Danyliuk. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Volodymyr Danyliuk? Please feel free to write them into the chat as always, or ask him directly. Maybe I maybe have a question. So you're just saying maybe you would like to see something such as the BBC. Do you see there is a chance in the future that there could be a media, I don't know how you say it, media house like this in Ukraine, or what is your opinion on that?
Да, медиа-дом, как вы говорите, в будущем.
Yeah, the media house, you say, it would be very important in Ukraine in the future, maybe a network of such media centers to be able to work in each region of Ukraine. And I usually say different meetings, even during parliamentary hearings on the freedom of speech that we had in Ukraine last year. There is nothing to invent here. We just need to adjust the experience of Germany, the creation of such media centers, and just bring it to Ukrainian reality. Because this is a very good system, and during many years of its existence, it showed how viable it is. Professional managers and qualified journalists work in such media centers, and people there have an opportunity to learn and to create media products and spread their opinion. Our project is also such a small media center of international direction. I think it is possible in Ukraine, but it will be quite difficult to do it on the regional level, just with our own efforts. They created something similar in Lviv, but it's done not so much with the support of the local journalists, because they don't have their own financial resources for creation and maintenance of the media center. But I know that there are some grant projects and international support for Lviv Media Center, and it's been developing. And I hope that on the level of our new ministry, our new information policy, now it's headed by a professional journalist, graduate of Kiev University, Alexander Tkachenko, who used to chair one of the strongest Ukrainian TV channels, 1+1. I hope that they will do it sooner or later, but I hope they will do it sooner, and they'll have to come to the system, because we should not only proclaim the freedom of speech in Ukraine, but we also need to somehow guarantee it. Put it like this: of course, every person on the planet Earth has the right to go to Mars, to land there, but I think not every person will have such an opportunity, unfortunately.
Thank you very much for your answer. There's one more question.
Yeah,
one participant in the chat. It's written, I'm sure you know about the laws that were scheduled to be considered in the spring. What can you say about these laws on media and on disinformation? Is it possible to approve them? How then can the journalism system work in Ukraine?
В Украине журналисты работают, скажем, в условиях, сегодня нет таких массовых атак на журналистов.
We don't have such massive attacks on journalists. There are less examples of physical violence against journalists, although, of course, the war in the east of Ukraine continues, and journalists go there to work, to cover the events that are happening in Donbass, and every visit to such a hot spot naturally is accompanied to a certain risk for health and life of journalists. But I would like to repeat that recently we have really concerning examples recently. Although some incidents do happen, mostly some kind of economic pressure on the media. Well, that's it, if to put it short.
That's completely fine. So I feel like this was a very interesting talk. So thank you very much, Mr. Danyliuk, for your insights and for being here today again. This is really nice.